And and this is with me having the following that I have. I'm not the biggest YouTube channel, but 2 million subscribers is nothing to scoff at, and I couldn't do anything about this. I've spoken to a whole bunch of people, and no one's ever heard of this issue.
Hey Nux, Pac here. I've had that problem. You see, the problem you're having is not with YouTube, it's with the financial institutions of countries. You see, you can say that YouTube is the bad guy and they're the one keeping you from your money. No, they're not. They're not. They're having to abide by the same laws that you do. You know who else abides by those laws? Sony, Microsoft, and PayPal, and Apple. You see, they all have legal agreements and have to abide by legal documents they've signed with companies, with governments, and they have to abide by all of that shit. Let me explain to you my story. You see, I had an Adsense account that I made in Canada for my channel that makes almost no money. So that little Adsense account is currently still there. It has about 20 bucks in it. I will never get that money back. Why? Because I can't tie Adsense accounts to a US bank account. I had tied them to a Canadian bank account, which I no longer have. In order to deposit that tiny amount, which of course you can't even get that money back, you have to close it. In order to close the account, you have to either forfeit the money or transfer it, and I can't do that because I'd have to go back to Canada to make a bank account. Now I have TD Bank. TD Bank has Canadian branches. They can't make me a bank account in Canada, even though I can have a Canadian bank account, even though they can control the bank account, even though I can log into that bank account from here and I can see it on my TD Bank account in America. In order for me to make a bank account in Canada, I have to physically go back to Canada, sign physical paperwork in Canada while on Canadian soil in order to actually get a bank account, in order to get that tiny little bit of money back, which isn't worth it to me, it's worth it to you, obviously. So when they say you have to delete your Adsense account and start new, that's the advice that I got too. And that's what you kind of have to do, and that's what you in fact ended up doing. The only difference is that Charlie's company took you on as an affiliate, so therefore they're the ones that are going to deal with all the legal paperwork of getting your money back. And so that's the issue that you've run across. Now, like I said, there's other companies that have these kind of issues, like Sony. Sony will not transfer your account. They will not. They will tell you have to make a new account in the new country you're in. Your purchases will not transfer, and I cannot buy anything more on that account. For instance, I started a Warframe account on my Canadian account. I cannot transfer that Warframe account to an American account that's associated with my Canadian account. I cannot buy anything on there via the shop, via American funds, because I cannot associate an American credit card with a Canadian account. So that account's just dead. It's just dead to me. I can't do anything with it. PayPal, there's another good one. When I transferred over, I had to delete my PayPal account because I had a PayPal account in Canada, and if I wanted to have one associated with my email address, I had to delete it and remake it because they cannot transfer that PayPal account over to an American account because of legal reasons. They are a legal entity in Canada, they're a legal entity in America, and the way it works between those two countries is if you incorporate, and if you do business in Canada, you have to incorporate in Canada, and your entities all stay in Canada. You can't just transfer them across. It doesn't work that way. Now, I suppose big enough they might do it, and a big enough level for corporate companies they might do it, but I doubt it because all they do is have to do like an asset transfer and whatnot. That's why Blockbuster Canada existed for months after Blockbuster US went out of business, and there was a question of what would happen with them because they were a separate legal entity. Therefore, they had not filed for bankruptcy because only the American side had filed for bankruptcy. The Canadian side had not filed for that yet and had not filed for insolvency under Canadian laws. Again, there's a bunch of these things. Apple, due to region locking, even though Canada and the US are both the same region, due to region locking, when you transfer your account from country to country, which you can do, it automatically locks your purchases until you transfer it back to the country that you were residing in. That meant all my music that I had bought over the years, all of the apps I had paid for over the years, all of that locked up if I changed my account. So now I have a Canadian locked Apple account that has an address and whatnot that isn't valid for me. So if anything were to happen, I'd have to give them that information to unlock that account, because all of that stuff is now locked to Canada. And I'd have to make a new US account, which I haven't, because I'm like, fuck you, Apple. If you can't even do anything for me, fuck you. I'm not going to spend any more money, because I wish I had known about this before I'd paid in all the money I did. Because one thing you should know is that my Google purchases did transfer. Google actually did transfer my stuff for me when I went from Canadian to American. Again, they actually have different policies because they have different agreements with their rights holders. And then on top of that, we have Microsoft that has also transferred stuff. Again, because they have different agreements, different rules and laws, because they've done different things. They've worked differently. So, as much as you want to blame YouTube, as much as your audience wants to blame YouTube, it's not YouTube. It isn't YouTube. These policies are set by the individual countries that you work within. Canada, US, whatever country you made that bank account in, all of that. All of those are going by their own separate laws. And YouTube has to abide by them. And they are not obliged to make an exception for you, because if they did that for you, they'd have to do it for every single channel. And you might think that's a good thing, but the amount of back-end work that it would take for them to make agreements with every government to have an open transfer policy that isn't going to be overly inspected by the government for things like money laundering, because again, that's US law, so they have to petition the US, they have to petition Canada, every other country, they have to lobby in every one of those countries to get laws changed for them to operate in their own way. Do you know how much money that would take from them? No company is going to do that. No company is going to do that, because there's obviously no guarantee of success from it either. So, again, don't blame YouTube. Blame yourself. Take it as a lesson learned. You fucked up. You made your account in the wrong country. You should have been more careful. It's shit, but it is what it is. And that's it. That's it. So now you know another YouTuber or part-time, sometimes occasional YouTuber that actually had the same problem as you. It's just not that common.